I will right now place a bet that the next Palantir, the next Anduril will be coming out of Israel.
How much money are you going to put on it?
A lot.
What specific area of defense tech is it in?
AI.
AI. If you have to write a letter to the mayor of London.
If you do not get control of your people, radical Islamic jihad is going to take over London.
This is a VisaGrad 24 series about the Israel-Hamas War.
Hi, I'm Michael Eisenberg, and so pleased here to be conducting an interview for VisaGrad 24, and I'm here with Yaron Samid.
I've been a serial entrepreneur for the better half of 2 decades, turned VC. More importantly, built an organization called TechAviv, an Israeli tech founder club, global network branches, New York, Boston, Silicon Valley, and here in Tel Aviv. Nonprofit, a worldwide network of top Israeli tech founders who want to help each other build better companies. And since October 7th, really became a global support network on multiple fronts, trying to help as best we can.
What are the kind of 3 salient activities that the TechAviv network and you've taken on since?
So the 3 buckets are media, civil, and military initiatives.
But be specific as to what you've done and what they've done.
On the media front, a lot of hasbara. So on that front, we have very influential people who have lots of followers, and then friends who have lots of followers, and we have been doing our best to get just truth out. There's a lot of misinformation happening, and so first of all, through influential voices. Second of all, through technology. In the TechAviv network, there are companies and startups who identify deepfakes and misinformation online, who are able to disseminate content more effectively online, are able to fight cyber attacks and denial of service attacks. And these are just Israeli tech founders who have basically repurposed their technology in order to join the efforts, making sure that people in the traditional media world, as well as the social media world, are getting access to objective, hard facts.
Is that helping?
To some extent, yeah.
Give me an example of a deepfake kind of uncovering or unveiling, and give me an example where you think that facts made a difference.
I think the most common type of deepfake has been photos, tragic photos coming out of Gaza, which...
Or not coming out of Gaza, as the case may be.
In this case, not.
Yeah.
And which, by the way, doesn't make any sense to me because there's plenty of tragedy and plenty of human disaster happening in Gaza, and there's no need to create fake photos. But in order to get that perfect, heart-wrenching photo, they'll use AI. By the way, that's doing a disservice to the Gazans as well as the overall narrative of what's happening here. And so this technology is able to identify that. Audio that's come out that has been fake audio, and videos where technology is able to kind of take a look at it and say, wait, this is not a credible source. And then we put that information out either through community notes, example, on Twitter, folks who are responsible for integrity of content across meta platforms, TikTok, etc. And we're just making sure those people get access to the technology and the content correction.
You know, if you mentioned community notes already, so one of the long-form pieces I wrote was after I met with Elon Musk, and what I said there was I thought the open architecture of Twitter was actually better than mainstream media, particularly because of community notes, and that would be a critical part of getting real truth out post-October 7th and in this kind of almost post-truth world that we live in. What's your view on community notes? I know you've spent a lot of time there.
I think it's well done. If you're familiar with how it works, there's sort of like a weighting. You have, in order to become a community note contributor and editor, you have to be someone who proves their objectivity. And yet they do have 2 different camps. They have, when there's a particular topic, you take people on both sides of that narrative, and you make sure both of them are voting on a particular community note going live or not. I think it's a nice start. I think there's technology can help solve that problem. Mm-hmm. But it takes leadership, in the case of Elon, to say this is important. We want to really have an open forum. We want to protect freedom of speech. And at the same time, we want to make sure that lies aren't spread and causing damage. So anyway, that's one of the areas that we've been involved in. Media front and on the civil front. Lots of nonprofit organizations that our members are running, like Brothers and Sisters, we're familiar here. On the military front, making sure that our soldiers have the right equipment. I'm personally part of a war room, that fundraise on that front as well. But most importantly, it's making sure that we bring the world to truth in order to fight what I think is the underlying kind of root cause of all the upheaval, which is anti-Semitism.
Is it possible to win this war? Right? There's so much been invested, and I think it's fair to say that Iran, Hamas sympathizers have been preparing the call it anti-Semitic side of this war for a while. I'll ask you this, what needs to be done in order to win that narrative war?
Brand realignment. We have a very unnecessarily bad brand in the world. We have now also been categorized in this classic binary woke framework of oppressor versus oppressed. We are now the oppressor, period.
Yeah.
Any other truthism that's around that gets basically tainted by the fact that it doesn't matter, you're the big bad guy.
So is the United States in that narrative?
Oh, we're in that camp with the United States, and what I believe needs to be done is to go beyond that binary layer into the nuance of understanding these Jews that people seem to very consistently throughout time hate as being the root of cause of all the bad that happens, to actually show the flip side of all the good that has been done and contributed to humanity from these people that the world hates so much.
But that's out there. I mean, so I'm making you the chief brand officer of the Jewish people in the state of Israel. What does the brand look like?
Well, I don't think it's out there enough.
Well, what is it?
So it's.
I mean, everyone knows that there are more Nobel Prize winners. It's not a secret. Big philanthropists. That's not a secret.
That's kind of the elite. The Nobel Prize and the money is elite. I'm talking about the people who are the first responders in the world when there's a disaster anywhere.
Right. That's out there.
Israelis. Is it?
I think
People
so.
really know? I'm happy that we get more out there. Let's put it that way. I'm talking about the food that you put in your mouth, with the food technology and the agri-tech that has enabled you to get sustainable food that you eat every day, being Israeli tech or Jewish tech. I'm talking about the cell phone you use and the laptop you use, having fundamental core technology built in Israel, not just through Jews. The fact that we're all having these conversations, BillGuard, on Twitter, on Facebook, and Instagram, etc. These are platforms built by Jews. Now, I think people are taking that to the negative, saying, wait a second, the Jews own everything, they own the media, they manipulate everything. The very fact that we have these capabilities, that humanity has an open platform for, communicating, is something that Jews have contributed to the world. It's a net positive. And I don't think that brand narrative has been established. I think the flip side of it has been established, which is that Jews are somehow conniving to do damage and in a greedy way and through nepotism, protecting everything for ourselves.
Who are the natural allies for Israel and the Jewish people right now?
Anyone who really wants to know the true story, the silent majority, which, by the way, who I care about. I don't think we're going to get anywhere with the fringes. The extremists are going to believe what they believe. They've been indoctrinated. Is very deep.
Mass delusions is a real thing.
It's a thing.
It's like a real thing, and it's been going on for a long time, and you see it in many places and in many areas.
But the silent majority, I think, is on the fence. First of all, they care more about the Super Bowl coming up, or they care about what's happening in local politics in Europe or Latin America. They're not really thinking about the details of what's happening between the Israel-Hamas War or what happened prior to October 7th. The truth very much on the side of Israel as a country who has the right to be recognized in our ancestral homeland. Just the truth, the objective truth. And we absolutely can do a better job of getting that out there.
How many of your founders were called up to reserve duty on October 7th? How many investments do you have, Bill?
20 companies, 8 of the founders were called up to reserve duty.
And how are those companies done?
We're very lucky. Of our 20, 18 of them actually achieved at or beyond end of year targets. 2 of them have been hurt by the lack of staff. Mm-hmm. We've been doing our best to help them, but I think that's a very high. We're skewing very high towards. So
if you had to give a message like to customers out there of your companies writ large, what would it be?
An investment in Israeli founders and tech is the best investment you can make in the world.
Why is it?
You will not find a more resilient cohort of individuals who are not only very tech and business savvy, but are battle hardened folks.
Wartime CEOs, literally, as we met many of our guys have been saying.
Literally. And what you have is like macro, dynamics that are anyway kind of holding the whole market back. But when you layer on top of that a war that these founders are literally fighting themselves, and then when you come out of that, it's almost like pulling back a rubber band. It's going to be an exponential growth when we come out of this. And I wouldn't want to put my money on any other asset in the world than Israeli founders.
I've been arguing that we're going through right now the greatest hackathon ever, right? The 8200 unit, which is famed. Generations of people who've come through that have gone back there now during the war to kind of help. And there's the amazing young technology minds and soldiers that are there right now. And so you've had 10,000, the most brilliant minds sleeping on the floor and on mattresses and kind of coming together in a 3-month hackathon to build incredible stuff where life and death is at stake. What are some of the incredible technologies that you think will come out of here going forward because of this incredible hackathon?
I think Israel is going to evolve from a cybersecurity focused ecosystem into a defense tech domain expert by necessity. And I think the future of warfare is software, not just boots on the ground or wetware, if you will. And Israel is unfortunately in a position where not only do we have the technical expertise, but we have the arena in which the defense tech has to be proven on a day-to-day existential basis. And so a lot of the AI that you see being used, a lot of the autonomous technology you see being used is being invented in these hackathons as we speak. And I will right now place a bet that the next Palantir, the next Anduril will be coming out of Israel.
Have you made that bet yet?
I'm looking for it.
All right. How much money are you willing to put on it?
A lot.
The next Palantir, the next Anduril?
A lot. I know a few things that are
What specific area of defense tech is it in?
AI.
AI. AI is like a core technology, but AI for exactly what?
Defense tech. This is the kind of.
I'm not going to compete with you.
No. On the contrary, I want you to co-invest with me. But this is literally the Venn diagram of expertise of AI, computer vision, and just military experience, literal experience. Like we're talking, in this country, as you know, in your most formidable years of your life, you're given a laptop, some Wi-Fi, and told, okay, kid, go figure out a way to teach a computer to look through a cloud and find a missile before it lands on your mom's house. Literally. Yeah. And you're told to figure it out because no one has before, and you might as well take a crack at it.
Yeah.
And you're dumb enough at 18 or audacious enough at 18 to go try. When you go through 3 to 5 years of that kind of experience, you come out of it not wanting to go be employee number 10,000 in Microsoft. You want to go try to change the world. And in this case, with the most profound purpose possible, which is to defend the very right for our people to exist, you're going to see some incredible companies being built.
You've lived outside of Israel for a period.
Most of my life.
Where?
I grew up in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
And professionally, I built companies between New York and Silicon Valley.
When you look now at Washington, D.C., at some of these protests around the White House, what do you feel?
I'm heartbroken because we don't deserve it. We have done wrong. There's no question about it. And I think, by the way, part of fixing the narrative is not propaganda. It's also to put a mirror in front of our faces and say, okay, when so many people so consistently over so much time hate us, there must be something we're doing to contribute to that, right? And there's some self-reflection that needs to be done. But when you see outright hate, violent hate, and it's allowed to happen, the shaking of gates in front of the White House, throwing bottles at so.
I mean, they're angry at America
security.
Too.
Yeah, and the fact that
Joe
particular
Biden.
group, the fact that a group like that can get away with doing it, and not all of them being like thrown in jail.
Yeah.
To me is heartbreaking because the world seems to have given a pass to what seems like a very genuine kind of protection of the oppressed. And yet these marches are nowhere near, freedom fighting resistance type of movements. This is hate.
I think it's more than that, actually, by the way, for what it's worth. I think what it is they're probing vulnerabilities at the White House.
They're pushing the limits. It's kind of like kids with parents to figure out how far we can go.
it's not just psychological, it's actually potentially dangerous.
I
right?
agree. No question about
And when there's no consequences in life. I find it interesting that in Washington, D.C., you can almost breach the White House. And in New York, you can attack Sloan Kettering. In London, you can call for the genocide of Jews.
University campuses.
On Westminster at university campuses. I don't see rallies like this in Poland, for example. I don't see rallies like this even much in Italy. And I wonder why. What do you think?
Democracy has its weaknesses, which is the ability to let anybody say anything or do anything, and not really having clear guidelines, because you don't have one person saying what you can and can't do. Mm-hmm. When you have
Italy's a democracy, and so is Poland.
It's true. That's true. But I think that the ability for UAE isn't a perfect example. I came back on October 6th from the UAE.
Oh, wow.
I'm inspired by what a benevolent king can do in organizing a nation, a good nation, who sees all as equal and welcomes all. There are certain cultures that I think need that kind of very clear directive, and other cultures where democracy opens up like just a cesspool of hate that is disguised as free speech, resistance, freedom fighting, etc. And unfortunately, we're seeing that, and that's heartbreaking because it is given a platform. You see what appears to be a massive, disproportional amount of pro-Palestinian versus pro-Israel groups. And I think those pro-Palestinian groups are actually doing a disservice to the innocent Palestinians by toting what is in effect a pro-Hamas narrative.
Not in effect, isn't it a pro-Hamas narrative?
Well, I think if when you have 200,000 people marching in London, there's probably in the edges folks who actually care about innocent Gazans and are anti-Hamas. And in the same time, you have the folks with the torches. They're not all good people, let's put it that way, but there are some. And we need to recognize that. And we need to embrace folks who do actually care about the plight of innocent Palestinians.
Oh, sure.
Who have been held captive by Hamas in Gaza. There's no question about that. And you're seeing more and more of them rising up to speak out against them.
I hope you're right. I saw, unfortunately, videos today of the aid trucks being hijacked by Hamas and then them shooting on the local Gazans. Yeah. It's heartbreaking that's allowed to go on. And I kind of feel like they get a pass.
That's like, what I'm saying is heartbreaking.
Why do they get a pass for violence?
Because it is a binary world. There is the oppressor and the oppressed. And somehow a terrorist organization is in the oppressed category.
That's quite remarkable.
Gives them a pass, and that is tragic.
Let's talk for a second about hopeful items. Like, roll us forward 10 years. I'm fond of saying that nobody imagined in 1944 that Germany would be a part of kind of a Western alliance, Japan would be a part of a Western alliance, Italy would be a very civilized nation and part of a Western alliance. Is there a future like that here?
So I am a helpless optimist. I have to be as an entrepreneur. And I do believe that as we sit here, we are living through a historic window of opportunity where a nation as a collective has gone through its heart attack and lived to get on the right diet plan, exercise, get a membership to the gym, and fix all of the things that have been foundationally swept under the rug for 75 years in Israel. We've had, on October 6th, we had a lot of problems here, right? And there's this unique opportunity that if you, two middle-aged men, if we're not...
Hey, speak for yourself, man.
That's true.
All right.
If we're not taking care of ourselves, God forbid it would take a heart attack for us to then take care of our body, right?
Yeah.
Israel went through its heart attack. There is a window of time, which is, by the way, slowly closing, where as a collective, the majority of the people are willing to make real change. Across party lines, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
And so there is this moment, which I think in the history books will look back on and say, there was a reboot.
I agree with that, by the way.
And
what does that look like?
People like you.
What does that look like, though?
I like how we avoided that.
What does that look like?
What that looks like is, I'm hoping, again, people might call me naive for this, but I think first and foremost, it looks like a complete reboot of leadership across military, across intelligence, and across politics in Israel. Specifically in politics, we have a system that is so just dysfunctional that if there ever was a time to kind of disrupt the system, not just another political party, but the system, it's now.
Yeah.
If there ever was a time to have great people like yourselves,
Yeah, keep moving, yeah.
might find it very inconvenient,
Yeah.
because you have your professional life and your personal life that you don't want to destroy, which is what politics has historically done to anybody who's dipped their toe into it.
Mm-hmm.
I just met with Izal Shai before.
Incredible guy.
Where good people who really selflessly care about the country would have never dared to go into politics now feel a calling that is highly inconvenient because they never wanted to do that. But if we can get that cohort of human being, if we can get the Michael Eisenbergs and the Shlomo Dovats and the Eyal Waldmans and the Gadi Eisencoats and the...
Gadi Eisenkot is there.
I know.
Yeah. So let me ask you a different question to finish. If you could leave the Visegrad viewers with one thing they need to take home, what is it?
I want to talk to the silent majority. If you've already picked a side here, then okay. I don't think we're gonna convince anybody. Maybe a little bit over time by sharing truth, but I think the silent majority needs to viscerally understand that you can't sit this one out. This is not a local Israel versus Hamas skirmish. We are literally on the front lines of a war of radical Islamic jihad, an ideology of hate, a death cult that is not limited by borders. It is an idea, and it is a cancerous idea that will come to your hometown. And you don't have the luxury of sitting this one out. You need to pick a side. And picking a side means also standing up and voicing your opinion. It means writing to whoever your political leader might be, and letting them know how you feel and which side that you're on. And I'll let you pick a side. I'm not going to try to influence people. You can follow Visegrad. You can follow objective sources for truth, but don't sit this one out.
And if you had to tell people not just to write and speak up, but to act, what would you tell them to do?
Share and amplify truth. There are plenty, if you have 5 followers on Facebook, you can share and amplify truth in an objective way. The truth is on the side of right and light, and eventually we will prevail. But we need more people who are currently silent to repost, to retweet, to tell a friend.
Can you really do this all from behind your keyboard?
No, but today, and for the better or worse, most of the silent majority is getting their news from social media and not from traditional media. And another protest, another march, these are very good, but typically they are echo chambers. The people who show up to that are already bought into the narrative of whatever they're marching for. Social media has a way of crossing these lines. If you are somebody who's been silent, chances are you're not in one camp yet, therefore you don't have an echo chamber. And your friends are probably part of the silent majority. And so, of course, I would recommend getting out there and standing physically. Because every warm body at a march shows, the world will not just sit down and take it. We're going to have an opinion. But I think it's a combination of those things that's very important. I also believe that at this point, you should write an email to your congressman if you're in the United States.
Can you dictate that email right now? Tell us what it should say.
There are websites, by the way, that
what do you
press a button.
I know, but what do you think? What do you think? Dictate the email.
Number 1.
Dear Congressman, dear political leader, go ahead.
Dear Congressman, you are in a position to make a real difference. I personally would like you to stand behind, if we're in the United States, I'll use that example, to stand behind what our president has very clearly outlined as the priority, which is to eliminate Hamas, a terrorist organization, and to support Israel in its legitimate fight for its existence. And at the same time, you can also say, I want to end this war as quickly as possible by, one, bringing back the hostages, including 6 Americans. I can't believe that doesn't get more rotation. There are 6 Americans, as we speak, in a terror tunnel in Gaza being held by terrorists. The fact that more U.S. congressmen are not just pounding the tables about that, make sure your congressman knows. I'll repeat the order. Number 1, the ability to end this war by eliminating the threat of Hamas. 2, returning all hostages, including the 6 Americans, back home. And 3, making sure that we bring the region back to a place of security and safety where both sides can prosper. Both sides. I think it's very, very important to keep talking about the fact that there are innocent civilians in Gaza who are also being held captive by Hamas. And it is imperative that especially political leaders in the U.S. give the cover of the United States President and the Secretary of State, who are working diligently to make sure that happens. And all the noise and all the misinformation right now, they need to cut through that clutter and make their voices heard and vote correctly. We have elections coming up. And that's an email that has to go out. That's a phone call that needs to be made.
So let me cross the Atlantic with you for 1 second, then we'll wrap up. So 2 days ago, Mohammed al-Kurd called for the genocide of the Jewish people outside of Westminster in London. Write the same email or the same letter to the mayor of London.
By the way, he claimed that he said not to normalize.
Yeah, that's nonsense.
What we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
He said to normalize the massacre.
Okay.
Right. So
I'm going to push back on that.
Okay.
I'm going to take his word for it that he meant not, because the rest of his speech, while it was inflammatory, by the way, it was really, it was one-sided, very inflammatory speech. I do not believe that if you follow him previous to that speech, he's not called for the massacre of all Jews.
No, let's leave it to the side. There's been mass protests in London calling for the massacre of Jews. So
in particular,
if you have to write a letter to the mayor of London or the Prime Minister of England, what does the letter say?
If you do not get control of your people, then radical Islamic Jihad is going to take over London. It is out of control. The fact that right now it is still marches and protests and so forth, and it's verbal. They are literally calling for the genocide of Jews on the streets of London and getting away with it.
And Christians, by the way.
And Christians, getting away with it. It starts with marches and voices and some torches here and there, and then it turns into violence. And it's going to maybe start with the Jews, but it will absolutely go beyond that. And
so what does the letter say?
Crack down. I really believe that at this point there needs to be some mass deportation of people who are specifically calling for the genocide of fellow Londoners just because of their background or religious belief or ethnicity. That just should not be acceptable in any free world nation. Those people need to be incarcerated or exported. And I do think that's going to cause a lot real upheaval. But I do think that kind of leadership is required now in London and all over the world.
The thing about exporting, by the way, is you get money for it. When you deport them, they just leave.
Oh, really?
Yaron, thank you.
Thank you, man.